Good morning, Noms Racers. It is Saturday, coming at you with another garage video. We are now just 1 week out from our season opener at Camp Tuscazoar, and I'm getting excited. Also a little stressed. I always get stressed leading up to our races because I want to make sure you're having a great race day. And this week I've gotten a couple of questions from people about weather and how we plan for weather. And I figured let's make that a subject of a garage video. I think makes this the first time our garage video has been a racer request. So cool, man. So weather, it is one of the most stressful things for me and probably for any race director or series director. It is very hard to plan for what are you going to do when weather doesn't go well. Now, fortunately, we have been very blessed that we have only had 2 races in our 2-year history where weather was really a factor. The first one was our very first race at Vulture's Knob, and we ended up having a great race day, despite the fact that the weather predictions leading up to race day were good, bad. It kept going back and forth. I went to bed the night before the race expecting a very good forecast the next morning. Woke up the next morning, looked at the weather forecast for the day, and was in a near panic because the weather forecast had completely degraded overnight. And what we did that day was we ended up running on a 1-hour delay for race day, which at the time some people thought was a very controversial decision, but it ended up helping us have a very great race day. And in a minute, I'll talk about some of the stuff that led us to that 1-hour delay decision. The other big one was Hampton last year. Hampton was the big race that everybody was very, very excited to come to because nobody had ever done a race at Hampton Hills before. That stone podium had been sitting there for years, never been used as an actual race podium, and we were going to be the first group of racers to race that trail. And we got just a biblical amount of rain leading up to race day. We ended up having to push out a week. Volunteers turned out to help get the race course back in shape. And then we got another biblical amount of rain. And we had to have a lot of conversations with the park district, who thankfully put their trust in us that we had a good plan. And we ended up having a spectacular race day. Beyond that, we haven't had a lot of weather-related problems. So what are we looking at this week? So first of all, when making a weather decision for our races, I'm thinking about 3 things. Racer safety, spectator safety, safety. Everybody that's going to be at the race, okay? Trail stewardship, okay? Are the trails going to be in a condition where we're not absolutely wrecking them by having a race with 150 people on the race course? And are you, the racer, going to have a good experience on race day? Because that's what this is all about. I want you to have a great time. So that's what we're considering, okay? And how do we make that decision, okay? I work with the local host at each race, okay? In many cases, the local host is somebody that is very involved with trail maintenance, which means that they know how well that trail drains after a rain and what's it going to be able to handle if it's had rain the day before, 2 days before, and so on and so forth. So I don't make the decision just by me, okay? I work with our local hosts. What are we looking at to make that decision? A weather forecast, of course. But it is easy to look at a weather forecast for a race day and say, oh my goodness, there's an 85% chance of rain that day. There's no way we're going to be able to race. Or there's an 85% chance of rain for the 3 days leading up to the race. There's no way the trail is going to be in good shape. The percent of rain, this percentage probability of rain, that was a hard one to say. I need more coffee. Hang on. Coffee break. Stay with me. Okay, I'm back. The percentage probability of rain is a one factor, but it's not the only factor. Okay, so in the week or two leading up to the event, we're also looking at the amount of rain predicted to fall. Okay, so you could have an 80% chance of rain, but it might only be 0.05 inches of rain projected to fall all day. 0.05, that's half of a tenth of an inch of rain. You could have a 60% chance of rain 2 days before the event, and it's calling for an inch of rain. Those are two very different things, okay? Even though it's only a 60% chance of rain, if you get 0.6, 0.75 inches of rain on the trail the day before the race, it could be a muddy mess, especially depending on how well that particular trail drains. But if you're only getting less than a tenth of an inch of rain, even though it was a high probability you're going to get it, that's barely anything, okay? That's actually something that can work out in our favor, because if we get a very small amount of rain the day before the race, you get hero dirt, and that's what everybody likes to race on. So that's what we're looking at in the week or two leading up to an event to make that long-term decision. But then as we get very close to the event, as much as everybody likes to joke about how bad weather forecasting is, if you're looking at something like weather.com, Weather Underground, or AccuWeather, which is the one I tend to look at the most, hour by hour forecasting has actually gotten very, very good. So when we get to within a couple of days of race day, I start looking at the forecast, not just in percent probability of rain and amount of rainfall, but what time is that rain going to come? Okay, again, you'd have 85% chance of rain if you just look at the full day forecast. But when you drill down onto that hour by hour forecast, you might see that, oh, it's coming at 2 in the morning, hours before the race, and it's going to be a very small amount of rain. Or it might be an 85% chance of rain with a half inch of rain, but it's not coming until 7 o'clock at night, long after we've all cleaned up and gone home for the day. That's not going to affect us, okay? When we had that very first race at Vulture's Knob, I initially woke up in the morning and saw a very bad forecast, and also looked at the weather radar and saw this big blob that was like coming up from Kentucky just to wreck our race day. At least that's how I felt in the moment. But then, took a step back and started looking at the hour by hour forecast, looked at how fast that was moving on the radar, and how much rain they were calling for us to actually get. The trail was going to get a little wet, but it wasn't going to be a lot. So talked to Troy and Carrie, at Vulture's Knob, and they said that's an amount of rain that the trail can handle, especially if it gets a little bit of time to dry out. So that was where we made that decision to run on a 1 hour delay for race day. Juniors race went off an hour late. The rain was just wrapping up a little while before the junior novice race. The junior novice doesn't have a ton of participants, so we weren't putting 100 riders out on a wet race course. And then by the time the noon race had come along, we'd gotten a little wind, we'd gotten a little sunshine, and the trail was actually in great condition. We actually ended up having an incredible race day that day, despite the fact that the initial reaction to the forecast first thing in the morning was doom and gloom and, oh my God, we're going to have to cancel or postpone the very first race of this series, which was not something we wanted to do. So that takes us to Camp Tuscazoar. We're a week out. What does it say? Let's take a look. So I'm looking at Dover, Ohio on AccuWeather, and I'm looking at Friday, April 25th. We're calling for 57% chance of rain with a total rainfall of 0.04 inches. And then if I go to Saturday, bear with me now, I'm actually not very good with technology. Gotta click back. I should really get somebody to edit this video so we could edit all this out and I would look like way more competent to you all, but what's the fun in that? All right, so Saturday, day before race day, we are looking at high of 67, shower in the morning, 40% chance of rain. The amount is 0.01 inch. That is 1/100th of an inch of rain. That is like so tiny. Like I'm trying to like really quick think of a joke about something about Troy's height and the small amount of rain, but I just can't get anything. So yeah, almost nothing on Saturday. All right, and then if we look at Sunday, race day, saying a high of 68, which, you know, I've been looking at this weather forecast every day. That high temperature has changed like every time I looked at it. Probability of precipitation, 0% and 0 inches of rain, which is really great. That's what we want to hear, okay? We're getting just a little bit of rain on the trails in the 2 days before the rain, and high probability of hero dirt is my official race day prediction for rain trail conditions. We're a week out. I think the weather forecast is looking great. We just cracked 100 racers signed up yesterday. We're a little bit ahead of the curve compared to last year. We had 207 pre-registered last year. I really want to beat that this year. So help me beat that record. We are capped at 225 because we don't know if we can handle that many of you crazy nuts if we go up to 250. But help me beat that registration record from last year and do as much good as possible, because remember, big chunk of your registration dollars go right into the trails at Camp Tuscazoar. And then if we do break that record, I really hope Kenny and crew break that record again with the Reign of Pain race later in the summer. I will see you all on the start line in just a week.